Join lifelong Star Wars fans Lauren and Steph as they dive into the world of Star Wars fan fiction, discussing a new fic each month, breaking down the writing style, characters, canon relationship, and more. This is your source for Star Wars fan fiction recommendations. So come on and find out why it's one hell of a fanfic. Hey guys, and welcome back to One Hell of a Fanfic. I'm Steph, and this is Lauren. And we're bringing you World Without End by Diasterisms this month. Hey, Lauren, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about this one. It was a really good one.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to read. It took me, I don't know, two hours? It wasn't a long one.
Yeah, I would say probably the same. I tend to just read these in one sitting. That's what I did with the one last month too. So I just sat down and made myself a cup of tea and just did it all the way through.
Same. Without the tea, though. That sounds I got tea today, though.
Oh, good. You got to get your Christmas tea going.
This one's jasmine, but Christmas tea sounds amazing.
Yeah, in the winter time. I mean, you can have Christmas tea at any time in the winter, but I mean, you got to do it. It makes you feel festive.
Yes, festive. That's my favorite kind of feeling.
Yeah.
All right, so to jump into this fan fiction, like I said, World Without End by Diasterisms. This can be found on AO3, Archive of Our Own, and it was made back in 2016. There's only 20,000 words, so like we said, nice and quick read. As we do here on One Hell of a Fanfic, we grade the spice level because, you know, we like a good spicy fanfic, and this one, folks, is a spicy fanfic. It is a level 3, but it borderlines into a level 4. Where would you put it?
Yeah, I would definitely say a high 3. There are some moments that we're pushing on 4 territory here. So,
Yeah. I think they call it like dubious consent a bit, like borderlining dubious consent. So,
yeah, and that is why it's always important, especially when we're talking about spicy fanfics, definitely make sure that you're reading the author tags and the content warnings before you read it. So that way, if there's something in this fanfic that you are not cool with, that you don't want to read, that's not something that you want to let into your mind, then the author tags, they outline it for you. And on this one, they were actually super helpful. And the author at the beginning of each chapter also put author tags before the chapter too. So just make sure you're being diligent with reading those author tags. If there's anything that you're sensitive to reading, you'll know about it beforehand.
absolutely. Some of those tags that she put in there were funny. I enjoyed them.
And some of them made me be like, I must read this fanfic right now.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, what does that? Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. So author tags are helpful in many different ways.
Absolutely. Okay, so spice level 3, maybe 4. This is like the last one we read. That's the words. Like the last one we read, this one was canon compliant when it came out in 2016. Now, not so much. It deviates a whole other direction, but that's okay. The tropes for this one are back to that fated mates again, kind of. Like this one takes a different approach to the bond, but it also has the Hades Persephone arc that it's like a retelling of, which was an interesting way to tell the story. This fiction also is a part of a Reylo anthology called Keeping the Stars Apart.
Yeah, and I will go ahead and jump into the author summary for this one. So, for this author summary, they don't give as much detail. They're kind of giving you more of the essence of the story, and they use a quote to do this, which is, "We are one when together, we are one when parted, we will share all, we will raise warriors." Mandalorian marriage law. And so that kind of gives you sort of it gives you the mood of the story without giving you too many details, is basically what that's doing. So, Steph, why do you think people should go read this fan fiction?
I think people should go read this one for the same reason as the last one. It's short, it's fun to read. It's easy to go through. You get engaged quickly and it's fun. Also, if you're into spicier content, it does a really nice job of it. How about you? Why did you keep reading it?
Yeah, with this one, I was particularly impressed with the way that the romantic chemistry was built in the story, and it definitely moved me and it really worked for me. In addition to that, aside from the romance, I also liked the way that it looked back on some canon moments and some things that we know from canon and kind of almost put a different sort of a spin on them. And I mean, I guess that's something I really love about fan fiction in general, but I liked it how we'll get into more details about it soon, but I liked it how it used the flashbacks to do that. And so
Absolutely.
that's something unique that this one brings.
Moving on to the next section, we are going to talk about things that are no longer spoiler free.
Yes. So if you're worried about spoilers, now's your warning. I definitely recommend reading this one if you haven't yet because it's great. And yeah, if you're worried about spoilers before you read it, then here's your warning to turn back now. But so moving into kind of recapping the actual story itself. So what we were talking about a minute ago is it is canon compliant up until a point, and where it falls is it takes place after The Force Awakens, and there are references in this one to that duel that they had at the end of The Force Awakens. And there's also some things in here too that also kind of line up with The Last Jedi. Like there's examples of Rey training with Luke and things like that. But of course, in this story, that training does go very differently um than it does in canon. I mean, in canon they don't really do much training. But in this story they're actually like working on stuff. So
Yeah,
that's a
and they get
difference.
along well. Imagine
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Which, you know, I personally I didn't have a problem with the way that The Last Jedi went with how Luke and Rey related to each other. Like to me it felt I was okay with it. But when I was reading this fanfic, I was kind of like, you know, it's kind of nice to see some real training going on. So
Yeah,
it
like a
was
master
refreshing.
apprentice kind of bond where you see with every other master and apprentice.
Yeah, I liked that dynamic between them. Okay, so next we're going to move into talking about the writing. So, what impressions did you get from the writing itself, Steph?
I liked the way this was written. It was written in third person, so we get to see both everything is kind of looking at it in a story view. I really liked how the author described things. It painted a picture in your head and it used more complex language than you get in some fan fiction, which is just kind of very surface level, where they and it used a very dynamic vocabulary. Even some of the words in there, I was like, I don't know what that means, but it sounds cool. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think that something that really moved the story along was the images, and because there's not much happening. Like there's not like a bunch of crazy stuff going on, but the actual images that we're seeing are they're what's really building the story. At least for me, like the scenery of like the castle and like their outfits and like all of this stuff that we're getting like the littlest details on, that kind of is what made it real for me.
Every little detail, even they described the color of fruit, the scent of it, the way that his servants looked, everything, the all of the details. But it wasn't overly wordy because there's a balance between descriptive and wordy, and it this fan fiction really kind of hit that balance right.
Right, and I agree with that because one thing that like when I'm just reading regular fiction that drives me crazy is when they're over describing something that everybody knows what it looks like. And that's this one didn't do that at all. It was describing things that like us as the reader wouldn't have. It's not like they were insulting the reader's intelligence with the descriptions. They were like actually giving us information that really helped create that mood and what was going on.
Right. It really brought you kind of into it so you can feel along with the characters.
Yeah, definitely. And also another thing about the writing too, they in order to help build the backstory of the characters, we got to see a lot of flashbacks and like memories and dream sequences. And sometimes it was hard to tell like how much of this is a dream, how much of this is a memory, did any of this actually happen? Like how did you interpret those things, Steph?
Well, it flat out would say memories sometimes. So that was helpful. So you can actually see it. And then you have these scenes that were memories of dreams. And that's where it got a little murky. And it seemed like a lot of those things could have actually happened. But they did have aspects of where it's obviously a dream. Where there was one that got referenced a couple of times where Kylo is protecting Rey from the birds. We know that he didn't save her from the birds, and it didn't make sense in the story, but there was also amongst a bunch of other things. But they used a lot of imagery in that to kind of tell more of the story that was actually happening in real life and in it.
Yeah, and like I guess so this is where I don't know if I'm overthinking this. I very well could be, but so what I was kind of getting from when I was reading those memories is like, you know how they say that the human mind, like every time it remembers something, it changes it slightly and then like creates like a new copy of that memory and like stores it again. And so like you could remember something, but it could still be slightly different than how it actually happened because of how many times you recalled that memory. Does that make any sense?
It does.
Okay.
I haven't heard that, but it makes complete sense.
So, okay, I could very well be butchering that concept. So, excuse me if I am. I am not a scientist, but it's just kind of something I've heard people say, something along those lines. And so, when I was thinking about that as I was reading these, is cuz I was like, so they're memories, but like sometimes like our own memories can be inaccurate. So, they kind of got me to thinking about like how accurate are these memories, and then there's the whole dream component as well, which further complicates that. So I just found that it was murky, but I almost feel like it was murky on purpose. Like it felt like
Yes.
they were trying to kind of create like a sense of like back and forth and like things feeling kind of on unstable ground, and like that kind of a impression is what I got.
It definitely kept us as readers questioning what's going on. And not in a bad way, but like questioning like what is like when you start reading it, like is this an actual memory or is this oh no, okay, so this is a dream. Which for those because that have not read this story, they use the dream sequences to explain how the bond happened and they would enter each other's dreams, which was an interesting twist on things.
Yeah, I loved that, the entering each other's dream thing. I think I just thought that was so cool. I liked it how they like because we see like in canon we see like force visions and like prophetic dreams, but I don't think we've ever seen like people actually being in each other's dreams and like them having their own agency in the dream.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah,
Especially because a lot of those dreams became rather spicy, which they
right.
started to allude to immediately.
Yeah, and that's where that spice level 3 comes in. High 3, almost a 4.
Yes.
But okay, so thinking about the characters. So like how did you feel about how the characters were written in this story?
They were very different to me from actual canon characters. But I'm looking at it at the series as in a whole and like who the characters are about the end. You mentioned last time how Rey in the movies it seems rather one note, just kind of sarcastic, and she's just kind of there doing what we'd expect her to do. Where in this story we see a different side completely of her and of Kylo, but mostly of her. I wouldn't have picked it like picked those characteristics up and like put them into Rey. But it was a lot of fun to read and to see that and to like kind of see the in this case the dark side kind of come out more.
Yeah. And it's interesting like what you said about the one note thing with Ray in the films. I guess because of that, I'm not really sure if I feel like this one diverted from Rey in the movies or not, because I just feel like I didn't have a lot to go off of, you know?
That's true.
So, I'm like, maybe. I mean, maybe in canon this could have happened. Like, I
That's
don't really
very true.
yeah, like, I don't really have, like, a firm, like, this is what it is. Um, but with Kylo Ren, there were some similarities. There were some similarities and there were also some diversions too, which I appreciate, because it's good to have, like, an added interpretation and, like, looking at the dynamic of the characters in a way that we didn't look at it before. So, yeah, I guess for me, the as far as if the characters match with canon or not, I kind of to me, it kind of went back and forth about if it matches.
Right. But that's the fun of fan fiction. We get to see we get the author's interpretation of the characters. And in this case, you also get to see how they take the characters from the movies and mesh it with the trope that they're going for, with the Hades Persephone trope. Which it also diverts quite a bit from that story too, but I look forward to talking about that specifically a little bit later.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, that's what keeps fan fiction fresh, and it's giving us something that is like, we've been Star Wars fans for like our entire lives, and fan fiction is giving us something new to talk about and new to think about and new dynamics to kind of like explore. And so yeah, like if it diverts from canon, then that's awesome because it's giving us like a new perspective that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
One of the biggest reactions I had was I giggled so much. Like, I looked silly reading this book when they were describing the castle and how the table was made out of a fossilized, I don't know, beast. And then it kept this entire castle that Kylo has made, which I feel like is very on point for his character and how he idolizes Darth Vader and all of everything he thinks Darth Vader was, and this dark, broody, and well, I mean that's kind of accurate. But
Yeah.
anyway, so he idolizes Darth Vader, and now Darth Vader has a castle. And then now he's got a dark castle on this beautiful world. He's got this dark castle made out of fossilized bones and onyx. And it's just so over the top, but honestly accurate in my opinion. But it was very funny to me.
Yeah, it's very extra.
Extra, yes.
I
Which is
mean,
everything that Kylo Ren is.
yeah, the definition of extra. Yeah, I liked that as well, and I also liked it when Rey compared it to Mustafar. Like she mentioned something to the effect of like your grandfather's castle was better.
Yes.
I mean, can you imagine after putting all this effort into your home decor and like trying to make it perfect and you invest in this fossil table and everything, and then the girl you like comes in and is like, I mean, I liked the Mustafar one better.
Just to stab it in there and twist it, why don't you?
Yeah, so okay, my reactions. Okay, my biggest reaction was to the twist when we find out that when he asks Rey to come kind of, have a duel with him once and for all, settle this for good. We find out that the reason he asked her to do that is because he wanted her to kill him because he didn't want to continue living this way. And that surprised me because I don't really know what I thought his intention was behind that, but I didn't expect it to be that. So what did you think about that, Steph?
I was shocked. I didn't see it going that way. I was in oh, this is a romance. They're going to end up together and everything's going to be happy. No, I was not seeing that coming at all. And I was like, oh, wow. I didn't even like it sat there for a moment just to process it. Like, wow, that was a good one. That was a good one on the author's part.
Yeah, and when I read that, I was like, "Wait, they're gonna end up together, right?" Like, it kinda scared me for a second. Like
Yeah.
like, they can't actually one of them can't actually die. And then I had that feeling again when they both wounded each other. I was like, "Are they both gonna die?" Like, it really had me there. It had me going there for a minute.
Yeah. Right in the chest. The authors
Yeah.
have to get us.
So did you have a favorite scene as you were reading this that like stuck out to you the most?
Yes, but it's not PG-13.
Darn.
Darn. Man, it's almost like we read these books and don't expect that. So my favorite scene happened in chapter 3, halfway through it, and all the way through into the beginning of chapter 4. And the beginning of the scene kind of is when it starts actually with some of the things I found funny, which is not only is the table made out of a fossilized beast of some sort, the railing going up the banister is also a spinal column of some giant beast. So once more with the extra. Anyway, so they go upstairs and then you see the dark side kind of take over Rey, and she's kind of had enough of whatever's going on. And she just kind of gives in to the dark side and force grips Kylo, and he gives into it. And that's I want to say I wasn't that surprised, actually. Like I could see that actually happening. And he was just more reverent of her and so excited that she would give in to the dark side, and like things go on. The spiciness doesn't actually, nothing kind of comes of it, because she ends up slamming a door in his face, which was also made me just smile. It was a great scene.
It almost makes you wonder if like the reason that he was like poking at her and picking on her and saying all this stuff that was getting a rise out of her, if he was just doing that on purpose this whole time to try to make her uh cave and do something like that.
That seems plausible.
Yeah.
I'll make that headcanon for me.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it.
How about you? What was your favorite scene?
So I would say my favorite scene. Okay, anytime there's anything related to Anakin, it's going to be my favorite scene. That's just how that is. So my favorite scene is when they're doing, it's part of the dream sequence when Rey sees Kylo Ren's dream of Anakin as a kid, and Anakin basically warns him and is like, I made a huge mistake. My life did not go well. And, kind of is communicating to him that this did not turn out in a way that is admirable. And Kylo Ren tells Rey, it's that dream has never gone that way before. Like usually he starts telling me like secrets of the Sith or things like that. So it must be because you're here is why it's changed. And Rey is like, I think it's you that changed it. It's your dream. And so I liked that part a lot just because that is something that I wish that we had in canon is some sort of interaction between Kylo Ren and Anakin. And because, in canon, when I'm watching these films and Kylo Ren is talking about how he wants to like fulfill Darth Vader's legacy, myself and I'm sure many others were like, Force Ghost Anakin needs to come down right now and tell him he's got it all wrong. Like, it's just driving me crazy,
Yes.
So I liked it. Yeah, I liked it that the scene was in here kind of warning him.
Right. I had actually, when I was reading that, I was curious also why the dream changed. And I was thinking it was because they were together and somehow the bond kind of changed things, and it kind of blocked whatever Snoke or whoever controlling his mind was like, because in canon a lot of that is, it's not even Anakin, it's Snoke making these like images in his head, or the voice, and I've been all the voices, or whatever he said.
Yeah, and I do think that's a high possibility that that's what was happening. I also, another theory I had too is there's earlier in the story when he feels Rey channeling the light and it really affects him deeply, like almost as if he missed the light. And so it almost makes me wonder if like being around a light side user, I almost wonder if that alone is already kind of pulling him a little bit closer to the light.
We can hope.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for.
I also liked, it wasn't exactly a scene, but I really enjoyed the Hades Persephone storyline. I hadn't actually read the all of the tags and the tropes at the beginning. So as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of mythological story like references. And then I saw at the end of the story on the author's notes that, oh, that's another thing I really like about this is that in the author's notes in every single chapter, she has two sections. One is all of the mythology lore, like the things references to it, and also all the Star Wars references that from ship names to planet names. And I thought that was great, especially for people who don't read a lot of Star Wars or watch a lot of Star Wars. You don't necessarily catch all the references, and I enjoyed that part quite a bit. One thing that was not in all of the references that you just kind of have to know is the whole symbolism of the pomegranate that is kind of sprinkled in along the way. Do you know the story of Hades and Persephone?
So I've read about 100 romance retellings of Hades and Persephone, but I do not know very much about the original myth. So enlighten me.
Absolutely. All right, so a lot of the references are like the Asphodel Meadows. That's in the story that is this beautiful field um that they are just kind of walking in. Then in the actual in mythology, that is where like the normal souls and the normal like the dead people that didn't go do too bad or whatever, they just kind of live there, and it's pretty. Um, Nysa is the planet. That's the planet where she finds like the right by when she's going to originally kill Kylo. That's actually the planet where Hades had kidnapped Persephone in mythology. So that was a fun reference, and that was my first one. I was like, that's I see where they're kind of going with this. Um, Lethe, which is the name of the planet that they're on, is a river, and it's like kind of where you go and you drink from it and you forget. And the people who go to the underworld are often, if they would like to forget their past so that they can make their death and their time in the underworld more pleasant, they kind of drink from this. But the pomegranate story comes from, so Hades has captured and kidnapped Persephone and takes her to the underworld. And the thing about the underworld is if you don't belong there, you don't have to stay unless you eat something. And nothing, so Demeter has made it so that nothing grows in the underworld, which is Persephone's mother. But the thing is, Hades really wants her to stay. He's in love with her. He is bargained actually with Zeus to make it so that he can kidnap Zeus's daughter. And at the but one last time, he like offers her a pomegranate, and she can't resist, and she eats 6 seeds of a pomegranate, and therefore is now trapped in the underworld for a third or half of the year, depending on the mythology you read. So that's where the symbolism of the pomegranate, but you start seeing it early in the story. Well, she's noticed this red fruit with the white flesh and the ruby red, which was also a beautiful imagery, the way they put that together. But that's where that story comes from. And I love how when you get to the end of the story where she does eat the fruit, and you're like, aha! Oh, now she's trapped.
You're stuck now.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. Man, I feel like I just got like a little lesson. That was awesome. There were some of these words that I was like, that sounds like a mythology word, and I just don't know what it means. So,
yeah.
But I'm with you. I like mythology as well, but my Greek mythology is like I'm not as knowledgeable about it. So, that's cool though. I really like that connection.
To our last segment of our show, let's talk about the questions that we had. Did you come out of this with like, man, what does Stephanie think of this?
Yes, I did. So, okay. The scene with the dream sequence with Han Solo. When I read, okay, let me back up. So, in canon, before Kylo Ren kills Han Solo and he's telling him, I have to do something. I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And he's crying. I always believed that emotion was genuine and that he genuinely was speaking the truth and crying and upset because he felt that he had to kill Han because he's in a situation he's never going to be able to get out of. Snoke is forcing him to do it, and he feels that he can't turn back at this point, and so he's going to go through with it because he has no other choice. That's what I thought when I saw the movie. I know that that's just a theory that is not confirmed. A lot of people believe that he genuinely was hateful to Han and that's why he killed him. So there's conflicting beliefs about that. But I was curious about in that scene in this fan fiction when he's talking to Han, he says, "One day I'm going to kill you." How did that scene affect you? Like, did it make you like feel any which way about the connection to canon, or did it make you kind of relate to it differently, or what were your thoughts?
Side note, did you read the book that came out of the movie?
I did, but it's been so long that I need to read it again. Why? Does it confirm one way or the other?
I don't remember, but the feeling I get from it is that it was more genuine, because I also feel like it was genuine.
Okay. And we're
I
both
do enjoy
that's
those
our
books.
homework. Our homework is we're rereading The Force Awakens.
That's what we're doing
Yeah.
when we have time. I really liked that scene that you're talking about. It was like it would go so nicely with canon, where like you do, because we don't get those inner thoughts and how he feels and how. I like it. I think I'm just gonna stick it in the head canon. Which I'm totally fine doing. I've ruined Harry Potter for myself doing that. Like that's not what happened.
That's okay. I mean, whatever makes you happier.
That's right. It's all a story. It's not real. Shh, don't tell the boys at the Cantina Cast that it's not real, because they might fight us.
Yeah, seriously.
It was a refreshing, not refreshing. It was emotional to read. I'm not sure how to answer that question, but it was emotional to read, and it just I'm glad we got insight inside of his head.
Yeah, I agree with that. So what about you? Did you have any lingering questions?
I do, actually. In the story, she is angry at him for something, and she's ranting about it, and then she says that he took the ocean from her head. And I don't, to this point, still don't know what that meant, because I thought maybe later on in the story it would explain that. But the only thing it explains is that she had more of those forced memory dream sequences, and he was in it, and he made her see the ocean. And she also explained the relevance of the ocean to her. But did it ever explain how it means by he took the ocean from her head?
What I thought was when I was reading that he when in The Force Awakens, when he has her in not captivity, when he has her in custody in The Force Awakens and he like forces himself into her mind and he's like, I see the ocean and the little island that you go to when you can't sleep at night. That's what I thought that meant. But now that you said that, now I mean, it could mean either of those things.
So also, what I found interesting was the force bond. So they explained the force bond way different in this than they did in canon. I grabbed quotes because I won't be able to remember it all the way. All right. So Rey says that she retaliated too intensely without proper mental shielding, and it basically that like it was like really Kylo was her first experience with another strong force user. But also Luke thinks that Kylo should have known better and shouldn't have let her pushed her so much and made her push back. So like basically Kylo forged this bond accidentally, not on accident. How did you feel about all of that?
I mean, to me, okay. You know what? I will give it this. This explanation is more of an explanation than we got when the Force dyad was explained to us in The Rise of Skywalker.
That is so true.
So even though I gotta say, like, the Force dyad, that tends to fall in line with, like, my personal taste of, like, I just eat things like that up, you know? But I appreciate the fact that this one was actually explained, and there is a very clear reason that is gone into as to how this happened. So, I mean, that's the benefit of it being this way.
And why do you think he did that? Because if his end goal was to end it all.
I think he did it because I think he just wanted as much of her as he could get. In whatever capacity that may be.
I like it. That's it, folks.
Case
That's all
closed. Yeah, case closed. What did you think about him cutting off that connection?
Ooh, ouch. We haven't even talked about the end of the book.
Yeah, because he cuts off the connection and then is like, I had to make sure that the decision to kill Snoke was my own, so I had to cut off contact with you to, like, really think deeply about this. That's, in effect what he says to her.
That part made sense to me. It was going back to cutting it off that didn't make sense to me. Like, why? Why did it?
I guess because it was just too miserable to only have her, like, halfway.
Mm.
It's like unfollowing someone on Instagram or muting them on Instagram after you break up.
Not unfollowing, just muting.
Muting or unfollowing. One of the, it's like that, where it's like, you're like, I don't want to see, like, what you're doing. Like, I'm still in pain, but this is like the more intense version of that.
What are they going to think in like 20 years when they come back and listen to something like this? Like, what, muting on Instagram?
Yeah. Well, sound like we're talking about like AOL or some other data technology.
Oh, that hurt though. I was like, oh no. But they could still have sexy dreams together. But no.
I know, right? That seems like it would be better than nothing. But well, I guess in the end though, it kind of ended up working out better for him because then she had to go visit him.
That is true.
So,
which is another reference to the Persephone Hades kind of arc.
Yes. Yeah, I did catch that one about how she has to go like every certain amount, with the seasons, every certain amount of time she has to go be in the underworld. I guess that they did in the end kind of get a happily ever after because now she goes to see him and it sounds like at the very least that's going to be happening on a regular basis if she's not staying for good.
Forced long distance relationship. At least they're happy.
Yeah, it's better than the alternative of only having it in your mind.
That's fair. I don't know. I think I personally would have preferred the dream sequences. And on that note,
I mean, they were very vivid dreams.
Do we have anything else to say about this fan fiction?
I mean, I think I got out everything I needed to get out. I really liked this one. I enjoyed it.
It was a fun read. It definitely was engaging and like you keep reading. You're like, what's going to happen next? It was like kind of nonstop. You just kind of like whoop right through it.
Exactly. Yeah, it flows really well that way. So what are we reading next month?
We are, you put it on the screen. All right. We are reading Story of Finn by Lullaby Nell, but this one's not on AO3. This one's on fanfiction.net, which is the same concept. You don't need to sign in or anything. You can we'll put the link of it into our Instagram post and the YouTube and probably Spotify and wherever else. We'll put the link in there that if we can.
Yeah, and this one is I don't think it's even it's low spice or no spice. It's no spice, isn't it?
So I think it's PG.
Yeah, maybe so then we can link it. Basically, with anytime we're reading something with a high spice level, I haven't linked it in the Instagram because I have been concerned about Instagram getting mad and shutting us down. I don't even know if that's something they would do, but I want to play it safe just in case. But for this one, we can link it because it's PG. So
Sounds good.
yeah.
So you can find us on Instagram at onehellofafanfic with a period in between each word. Thank you. And then also on YouTube, we're under the same thing, One Hell of a Fanfic. Please like and subscribe if you are enjoying finding Star Wars fan fiction recommendations and hearing us talk all about it.
Thanks y'all for joining us, and we will see y'all next month with our next fanfic that we're covering.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for joining us at One Hell of a Fanfic. On this podcast, we discuss Star Wars fan fiction, but we do not own the rights to Star Wars or any of the written works we cover. We have no affiliation with Lucasfilm or the fanfic authors we credit for their work. For questions, please email us at onehellofafanfic@gmail.com.